What's up, everybody? I'm Kirk, and this is the State of the Boom, a monthly recap of FPS news, releases, and a look at upcoming titles. And in this episode, we have some big stories not only affecting the first-person shooter world, but the gaming industry on the whole. There's some GZDoom drama to detail, game announcements, and a few things sprinkled in that I thought were just plain cool. It is unlikely I've covered everything though, so if there's a story out there that's important to you, be sure to share it down in the comments. But before we dive into all of that, I want to take a moment to talk about this woman. This is Rebecca Heineman, and if you haven't heard of her, she is an absolute legend in the gaming world. In 1980, she became the first world champion in Space Invaders, beating hundreds of other competitors, and went on to have a storied career in game development with dozens upon dozens of credits, having worked on titles such as The Bard's Tale, Dragon Wars, Ultima, Wasteland. She also worked on ports for classics like Out of This World, Killing Time, Jazz Jackrabbit, Aliens vs. Predator, and Wolfenstein 3D. She was also one of the co-founders of Interplay, which produced gaming mega classics such as Baldur's Gate and a little title called Fallout. And among all her works, she is famously credited with developing the 3DO port of Doom, which is a terrible version of that game. However, she developed it in 10 weeks in what can only be called a legendarily horrific crunch sesh. This story was covered in a fantastic video from Digital Foundry on Doom console ports, and is also covered by Heineman herself on her YouTube channel. I recommend checking it out, although it will likely stress you out. Sadly, Rebecca was recently diagnosed with an aggressive form of glandular cancer. As she describes it, she went from being an outgoing computer nerd into a nearly bedridden cancer patient who is nonstop exhausted. Rebecca has entered chemotherapy, and while her insurance covers some of her medical bills, it's not enough. So she has started a GoFundMe to help her cover the costs. The goal is to raise $120,000, and at the time of this video posting, the money raised is sitting around $110,000. So if you are able to contribute to the GoFundMe, please do, or at the very least, share it with others. I have it linked in my description and in the pinned comment. As I said, this is a legend of the gaming industry. I want her to keep making stuff, and I think we can cover that last gap of funding and then some. Now on to the GZDoom drama. This past month, the majority of developers working on GZDoom split from the project to start their own fork of it, following some heated disagreements with its lead developer. In case that made absolutely no sense to you, GZDoom is a source port of the original Doom engine, basically an enhanced version of it made to work on modern machines and souped up with a bunch of modern features. It's an open source project, meaning that anyone is free to contribute to it and modify it. For years now, it's been the go-to for the Doom modding and mapping community, and back in 2017, it gained a GNU General Public License, which, among other things, means that anything made on it can be commercially released. This led to a wave of first-person shooters hitting the indie market using the engine. The engine has also been used for platformers, RPGs, survival horror titles, racing games, you name it. Shout out in the comments your favorite GZDoom recommendations for those that are unaware. So why the split? Well, GZDoom's lead developer, Christoph Graf Zal Alkers, I think I pronounced that right, we'll call him Graf from here on out, has been a pretty controversial figure within the scene for a host of reasons. I'm not going to go into too much detail, and bear with me, I was ignorant to a lot of this before this video, but essentially it boils down to lack of communication with his community and sudden disappearances, disagreements over the direction of the engine, refusal to cooperate with other developers, and from what I can gather, just plain being mean, openly antagonizing and mocking other GZDoom projects and creatives. The straw that broke the cacademon's back, though, was that recently Graf introduced untested code into GZDoom that was generated by ChatGPT, which, to put it plainly, pissed off his fellow developers. Now, past the current societal debates on using AI to generate anything, let alone code, the chief issue with this, as seen by its developers, is that by introducing AI-generated code into GZDoom, it could potentially jeopardize the engine's general public license, as AI-generated code cannot be copyrighted. Only code written by a human can. And because of that, games developed within GZDoom could face legal scrutiny. This led to a heated back and forth between Graf and the other GZDoom developers, resulting in him basically telling them, if you don't like it, you're free to fork it, as in create your own version of GZDoom. Again, this is an open source project. Anyone is free to alter. And the other developers basically said, happily. And thus work began on GZDoom, or GZDoom as I like to call it. And it's essentially carrying on the work of GZDoom minus Graph's involvement and the AI generated code, prompting many to claim that GZDoom is dead. And already GZDoom is getting a pretty positive response from the Doom modding community, with one of its first promised features to deactivate texture filtering by default, something that many have been wanting for years. And the GZDoom team are aiming to put features in it like better netcode and ray tracing. So what does this mean for GZDoom developers and players going forward? Well, for players, past enjoying some juicy internet gamer drama, nothing. But for developers, it appears some projects currently in development are being put on hold until GZDoom is ready for prime time. If there's a curveball though, or crazy developments to this aspect, I'll be sure to touch on it in my next boom. But by all accounts, it looks like new games developed in the Doom engine are about to get even better. Now to throw in my 2 cents, it appears that this was a long time coming, and goes to show that regardless of talent, being a jerk in a creative field will always come around to bite you on the pinky demons. However, in terms of the AI aspect of this, I can't help but feel that this is an omen for more AI-related gaming conflicts to come. The fact of the matter is, AI appears to be an inevitability, and I think more fights and debates about its usage in gaming are going to come, and I think that war is largely going to be waged in the indie space. Don't get me wrong, the AAA space is already diving headfirst into AI for its potential cost saving, and there are plenty of conflicts and sadness to come from that. But the time and cost saving AI could provide will be hard for some fledgling indie developers to resist. I could be wrong, but my gut is telling me that a storm is coming and we're just seeing the first droplets of rain.
Hey everyone, Xbox Game Pass is getting an upgrade.
Now we're moving on to what I'm calling the Microsoft block, because boy did Microsoft make some news this last month, and most of it was bad. First off, it looks like the best deal in gaming is now a thing of the past. Right at the beginning of the month, Microsoft hiked the price of Game Pass Ultimate from $19.99 to $29.99, a 50% increase. This comes 14 months after Ultimate's price was raised from $16.99 to the previous $19.99. The prices for Game Pass Standard and Core tiers, renamed to Premium and Essential respectively, remain the same for now, $9.99 a month and $14.99 a month. Microsoft were quick to justify the Ultimate increase by announcing that Ubisoft Classics would now be included, along with 1440p cloud streaming. And of course, highlighting that 75 day one releases would be coming per year, hyping upcoming releases like Black Ops 7, High on Life 2, Ninja Gaiden 4, and Outer Worlds 2. However, this hardly eased the understandable outrage from the Xbox community. In a time of economic uncertainty and raising costs not only in gaming, but across the board in everyday life, many gamers on a tighter budget have relied on Game Pass to enjoy newer and classic titles. And for most of my audience watching, a swath of excellent first-person shooters, with almost the entire id Software catalog included. And while $19.99 could be justifiable to many, $29.99 was the tipping point. Keep in mind, when the Game Pass service was first introduced back in 2017, it was $9.99 a month, and when Ultimate was introduced in 2019, it was $14.99 a month. Many Xbox gamers responded to the news by canceling their Game Pass subscriptions outright. While Microsoft has boasted that Game Pass generated nearly $5 billion in sales in 2025, a Bloomberg article posted a few days after the price increase revealed Game Pass was not the moneymaker Microsoft was hoping for. In the article, it was revealed by a former Microsoft employee who remained anonymous that Xbox lost more than $300 million in sales in last year's Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Which was available on Game Pass on its launch day, and it could be speculated that other Day 1 exclusives have experienced significant losses. But then came the real doozy. Towards the end of the month, on October 23rd, Bloomberg would also report that Microsoft was, in the article's words, asking the Xbox gaming division to increase their profit margins far above industry average, 30%. For perspective, the average profit margin in the games industry right now is between 17 and 22%. Apparently, Xbox has been coming in between 10 to 20% in the last 6 years. So while it makes sense that Microsoft is pushing its gaming division to be more profitable, asking for 30% is seemingly unreasonable considering the industry average isn't hitting close to those numbers either. According to the article, the new target was implemented in the fall of 2023 by Microsoft Chief Financial Officer Amy Hood, and it serves as an explanation for Xbox's strategies for cost-cutting and profit boosting, such as releasing their games on rival platforms, i.e. the Switch and PlayStation 5, and sadly their mass layoffs and cancellations of projects like Perfect Dark. It also could explain why the company is leaning into quote-unquote safer bets like the recently announced remake of Halo. More on that in a bit. While the year is not over yet, this news seems to be a capper for a pretty negative year for Xbox in the eyes of gamers. Back at the beginning of the year, many still saw them as one of the more prosumer AAA gaming companies, but following the Microsoft layoffs, game cancellations, and now this price hike, it's hard to feel positive about them, especially when we consider the pressure their corporate overlords are putting on them. There was some positive, or relatively positive news to come out of Microsoft towards the end of the month. On October 24th, Microsoft held a live stream event to announce Halo Campaign Evolved, a remake of the original Halo built in Unreal Engine 5. On top of upgraded visuals, the remake will feature new story content and include features introduced in the later entries, like being able to use the energy sword and sprinting. It was also announced that the infamous library mission is going to get a revamp, much to the joy of all of us. Sadly, the original multiplayer mode will be absent, but it will feature co-op with up to 4 players. But what was the most surprising news is that on top of coming to Xbox Series and PC, the remake will also be coming to PlayStation 5, making it the first Halo release on a Sony platform. Do you hear that? That's the sound of hell freezing over. This news isn't entirely surprising though. Microsoft has been distancing itself from its exclusivity practices, having recently released a remaster of Gears of War on Sony's console, as well as Forza Horizon 5. And we can't forget that Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming to the console in December. There's no firm release date yet, but the remake is set to release sometime in 2026. This announcement comes after the rebranding of its developer, 343 Industries, to Halo Studios, and decision to license the Unreal Engine 5 after issues with their proprietary Slipspace engine on Halo Infinite. This also comes after its founder, Bonnie Ross, stepping down in 2022, with Pierre Heinz taking over. The Halo franchise has been in a somewhat rocky state throughout the last decade and change, with many longtime fans critical of it. Perhaps with this remake and its developer's shakeup, this will turn the franchise around. Only time will tell. Okay, we need a palate cleanser from all this Microsoft stuff, and I have an upcoming fan remaster that should do the trick: Unreal Redux. Unreal was originally released back in 1998 and developed by Epic Games. On top of innovating the FPS genre with its expansive environments and, for the time, groundbreaking graphical fidelity, it introduced the world to the Unreal Engine, which over the next few decades would become a dominant piece of gaming tech. It's been loved by developers and gamers all over. Well, up until its 5th iteration. While Epic Games these days has focused their full attention on making Fortnite and keeping China happy, there are passionate fans out there dedicated to keeping the original Unreal games alive. Unreal Redux is a complete remaster of the original game, made with an enhanced version of the Unreal Engine 1, with the intention of the remaster to retain the atmosphere and feel of the original game, but with a boatload of modern enhancements. Here's a graphic of all the planned features if you want to pause and look it over, but essentially, levels will have more detail and better effects, there's going to be gameplay tweaks and expanded interactivity, new content added, in particular secrets, and lots of bug fixes. According to the project's FAQ, co-op will be featured with some exclusive gameplay features, current Unreal HD texture packs will be compatible, and players will need at least the original version of Unreal to play it. So far, judging by the media put out for it, the remaster looks awesome, and best of all, Unreal's original designer, the legend known as Cliffy B, has been singing its praises, hyping the project up on his socials. Quote, "My last words when I left Epic were please remaster the original Unreal." And, well, the fans are doing it. Looks so cool. Time for a new generation to learn that Unreal isn't just an engine. Sadly, there is no release date for Unreal Redux yet. Basically, it's a it's done when it's done situation. I'm really looking forward to this one though, and when it comes out, more than likely I'll do some content for it. There was some sweet and sour news for System Shock and its current developer, Night Dive Studios. For the sweet, it was announced that the System Shock remake will be coming to Switch 1 and 2. The handheld port will feature Joy-Con mouse support on Switch 2, as well as gyro aiming. The community feedback updates are also coming to this version too. But what really made people happy was the news claiming that the game card, with the game on it, is going to be included. For context, some physical Switch 2 releases are coming with game key cards, which actually don't have the game data on them, but instead allow you to download the game digitally onto your Switch or SD card. After that's done, it's essentially a worthless piece of plastic. This has come as a great irritation to both game collectors and game preservationists that prefer their physical games to actually be physical. So Night Dive pointing this out is not only a great move on their part, it makes a lot of sense for them, seeing as their remasters are a form of preservation in and of themselves. Granted, this is a remake, not a remaster, but I think you know what I mean. Makes me want to buy it, that's for sure. For the sour though, it was announced over this last month that the original System Shock 2 will be delisted from Steam. The original version will still be included with the System Shock 2 25th Anniversary Remaster, and existing owners will still be able to download it, but the problem is, for those that would prefer to play the original version over the remastered one, they will now have to pay the remaster price of $29.99 to do so. The price for the original version was $9.99, and a common complaint for the System Shock 2 remaster, as well as other Night Dive remasters, is that they are a tad overpriced. Now, this is a common practice for Night Dive. For instance, they did the same thing with their remasters of Quake, Quake 2, and Heretic and Hexen. However, the Quakes sell for $9.99 and Heretic and Hexen is $14.99. Even more odd is that they haven't done this for some of their older remasters, at least not yet. For instance, the original Dark Forces and Rise of the Triad are still available on Steam alongside their remasters. My guess is that this is ultimately their publisher's call, Dark Forces being controlled by Disney and Triad, Apogee, and New Blood. But I can't say for sure. It's a shame though. I don't see the harm in giving gamers a choice, although it would be far worse if it was gone altogether.
I'm your host, Jane Douglas, and welcome back to Galaxies, a 60-minute showcase packed with exclusive game announcements streaming right here every autumn and every spring.
On October 23rd, the Galaxies Autumn Showcase was live-streamed, showcasing more than 50 upcoming games with world premieres and demos. And of course, there was some first-person shooty-shoot goodness shown off. Right off the bat was a world premiere for the gorgeous cyberpunk-themed Defect, developed by Empty Vessel, and set to feature new tunes from Mick Gordon, who you may know from his sonically superb music for Doom 2016 and Eternal. PvP survival game Enginefall was shown off, reminding me a little bit of Snowpiercer, minus the snow, and cockroaches. Bolt Gun 2 had a new trailer revealing its new main character, Naira Veyrath, a sister of battle. The first Bolt Gun absolutely slapped, and this one is looking to slap even harder. I'm looking forward to wiping out some heretics in 2026. Far Far West, a sci-fi co-op shooter, showed off a ton of whimsical, beat-heavy action, playable with up to 4 players. It's looking like quite the time, and it announced a playtest during the show. It Takes a War looks to be a Counter-Strike knockoff, but its somewhat cringy, somewhat spooky trailer suggests otherwise. Hark the Ghoul was shown off, a low poly-immersive sim-looking dungeon crawler where you take on monsters with a variety of guns, spells, and whatever you can get your hands on. And finally, Mouse PI for Hire had a new trailer, showing more of its impressively animated rubber hose world. I've been incredibly excited for this one, and we finally have a release date for it, March 19th, 2026. Oh boy! The Counter-Strike 2 community was turned upside down this last month after a new update tanked the game's skin market. The mega-popular online shooter has had a thriving skins economy, being in-game cosmetics for weapons, equipment, and characters, and players have invested real money into them, buying and selling them on Steam's marketplace, with the rarest of skins being valued up in the millions of dollars. Now, the rarity of skins are color-coded, not unlike other loot-driven games, so colors like gray and blue are fairly common, whereas red and gold are the rarest. And a rule that's been in place is that players can trade 10 skins of one color to upgrade to the next color, with the exception being gold. You couldn't trade in 10 reds for a gold. The only way to get a gold was through opening weapon cases, and the chances of that was very low. And this rarity is what steadily drove up gold skin values on the marketplace. That was until last month's update, which reversed this rule, allowing players to trade 10 reds for a gold. And boom, that crashed the market. In the blink of an eye, gold skin values dropped off a cliff, and players went into a frenzy of panic buying and selling. Overnight, the Counter-Strike 2 market cap fell from $5.9 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, to $4.2 billion, a drop of $1.7 billion. Jiminy Christmas. Counter-Strike players who invested big bucks into the skins market were understandably devastated, while those who didn't essentially rolled their eyes and went on with playing the game. And of course, the memes flowed. So why did Valve do this? Seeing as they take a cut of any skins sold on the marketplace, it seems like they're throwing money away. Well, in the long run, not really. While Valve hasn't given an official reason, the speculation is that this was done so they can take more control of the skin ecosystem, as many rare gold skins were being sold on third-party sites and Valve was unable to get a cut of those sales. The other thing too is because the skin values were climbing so high, it discouraged many players from participating. By making this change, it allowed more players to obtain gold skins by crafting them and, more importantly, buying and selling them, increasing the activity on the marketplace and increasing the amount of transaction fees Valve receives. And while this is only speculation, it seems that this has been the case since the update. Personally, I'm not a Counter-Strike player, and I featured this story really because I thought it was wild. But to me, it seems like this is the same lesson a lot of people learned with the NFT craze, which is be very careful investing large amounts of money into stuff that isn't real, especially when the system of it is controlled by an entity that can change it at any time. Our final story is something that has more of a broader impact on gaming than in first-person shooters, but I think it's something that should be on most gamers' radars, and a few of you asked me to touch on it in the last boom. On the 29th of September, Electronic Arts was acquired for an all-cash transaction of $55 billion by an investor group comprised of the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, Silver Lake private equity firm, and Affinity Partners, which is headed up by Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of President Donald Trump. It was the largest leveraged buyout in history, with EA stockholders receiving $210 per share, and placing EA back into private ownership since it went public back in 1990. The deal still has to be approved by regulatory agencies, although it's unlikely it will experience many obstacles, seeing as Jared Kushner is, again, the son-in-law of President Trump. The deal is expected to be finalized by June 2026. So, what does this mean? Well, in truth, it's hard to say and can only be speculated on at the moment. But among the many concerns, both in the political and business realms, the chief one is that EA and its major franchises, like Battlefield, Apex Legends, Mass Effect, The Sims, and sports IP, like Football Club, formerly FIFA, and Madden, will be subject to the whims of the Saudi government. The Saudi Public Investment Fund is directly controlled by them, which could bring potential censorship, propaganda, and data collection. Mass layoffs are also feared in order to recoup the debt from the buyout, with potential wide implementation of AI to replace much of the workforce. We also can't forget that the Saudi government is widely criticized for their human rights abuses, murdering of journalists critical of them, and their alleged role in the September 11th terrorist attacks. To be clear, these fears are only speculation, and higher-ups at EA have assured that the company culture will remain unchanged and that no downsizing will take place. However, this should be taken with a grain of salt. This is an alarming development, though. While the Saudis have been steadily investing in the games industry in the last few years, with investments in major companies like Nintendo, Take-Two, Activision Blizzard, and Embracer Group, to name a few, them outright buying Electronic Arts will undoubtedly give them major control not only over a huge swath of the gaming industry, but also mainstream gaming culture. Again, the outcomes of this buyout can only be speculated on at the moment, and the effects of it won't be seen or felt for a few years. It could be that nothing changes, but judging by the negative effects of consolidation in the gaming industry felt in the last few years, it's hard not to be concerned. However, it does serve as an example of the gaming industry changing right before our eyes. We are truly entering a new and unprecedented era as the gaming institutions we've grown up with are gobbled up by larger interests or crumbling right before us. I'm certain this is going to be a developing story in the coming months, and admittedly, there's more I need to educate myself on it. But if I feel there's something important that needs to be relayed to all of you, I will do so. Now we head into last month's releases. But real quick, if you've watched this video up to this point and have been enjoying it, please consider subscribing and liking if you haven't. That sort of support is what makes this channel possible. A correction at the top. Last boom, I said Borderlands 4 would be releasing on Switch 2 on October 3rd, but it was actually indefinitely delayed, and I simply missed the news. Sorry, Switch owners, you'll just have to keep playing Silksong and Cyberpunk. Kicking off the month was Melted Valor, a boomer shooter throwback to the old Army Man games where you wage plastic melting war with the iconic green action figures. Developed in GZDoom, hey, remember talking about that earlier? Night Jackal Blood Debt dropped on the 9th, providing some good superhero boom shootery. Battlefield 6 was finally deployed on October 10th and was overall well received. The multiplayer garnered the most praise from gaming outlets and players, with some gripes towards its balancing and matchmaking, while the campaign was largely panned, just like most Battlefield games. Morta was released to a very positive reception from the GZ, or rather Uzi Doom community. Co-developed by Scumhead, known for the Shrine games and Vomitorium, Morta is a non-linear fantasy western FPS featuring 3D models, something not terribly common in GZ Doom games. I actually put a couple hours into this one, and while it's a bit on the jank side, I found it fascinating. One of the more unique indie shooters I've played in some time. If you're looking for something different in the boom shoot space, I recommend checking it out. A trio of short games developed by Dave Zemansky, the creator of Dusk, came to PlayStation 5. Chop Goblins, a delightful old-school shooter where you hunt down menacing goblins with butcher knives. I reviewed this a few years back and loved it. Squirrel Stapler, a squirrel hunting simulator where things start out real silly and then get real crazy and kinda Lovecraftian. And Iron Lung, a submarine horror game where you must explore an ocean of blood and snap photographs. Very simple, unusual, and engrossing. I've played all of these, I think they're all great. Zemansky is one of the best indie devs out there, and I'm overjoyed his games are getting onto more platforms. I recommend all three of these, but if I had a gun to my head and had to choose one, it'd be Iron Lung. Also on the 15th was Blood West for the PlayStation 5, providing the console owners with some much-needed open-world Weird West action. The expansion to the build engine-powered Ion Fury Aftershock, came to all consoles on the 16th, which coincided with an update to the first game improving performance and controls. There were a bunch of titles that dropped on the 21st, like Vexmage, a fantasy FPS where you defeat enemies with a dual-handed spell system, also playable in VR. Along with that was Boomer Grandma, a super indie Doom-style throwback where you play as a little old granny with some big, high-powered weaponry. 20 years after the original, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 finally released, and the response was very mixed. While it has its defenders, many felt it did not live up to the original due to a shallow RPG system and uninspired combat, with the kinder consensus basically saying it's a decent Vampire the Masquerade game, but a bad Bloodlines game. However, Bloodlines 2 fared a lot better than 3D Realms' Painkiller reboot released the same day. The online co-op focused revival of the 2004 classic, originally developed by People Can Fly, was negatively met by players on launch. While regarded as a competent if not uninspired Doom-style shooter, many felt it no way lived up to the Painkiller name, with the harshest opinions saying it was an outright betrayal to the original. While it has its defenders, it looks like this one is dead on arrival. Hopefully 3D Realms' parent company, Saber Interactive, is paying close attention to this one for their upcoming multiplayer-focused reboot of Turok. Also swooping in on the 21st to wash the bad taste of Vampire and Painkiller out of our mouths was Darkenstein 3D, a humorous throwback to shooters like Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, rocking a boatload of weapons, blocky levels, and silly Nazis begging to be destroyed. Best of all, it's free. Go grab a stein or two of beer and try it out. Painted in Blood released into early access on the 23rd. I wasn't able to get to this release, but I did do a video on its demo and was singing its praises. This one has a ton of potential, and with a $10 price tag, it was just the thing to scratch the spooky itch for FPS fans. Also released into early access on the 23rd was Species Unknown, a 4-player survival horror co-op game where you play as a mercenary sent to carry out contracts on an abandoned ship. And what do you know, there's something horrible on it that wants to kill you. Free-to-play online FPS Bullet Force dropped on the 24th, along with Lightphobe, an asymmetrical PvP shooter with stealth aspects. Also on the 24th was PAX Revenge, a retro-style FPS inspired by a certain Namco property. Deep-sea horror game Beneath sunk into our hard drives on the 27th, just in time for the spooky season. On the 29th, Outer Worlds 2 dropped into our orbits, carrying on Obsidian's signature style of open-world RPG. Reviews were strong for this one, citing the deep, perhaps too deep, RPG mechanics and satirical world building. Also on the 29th, zombie horde shooter Drop Dead: The Cabin rose from the grave. playable in co-op and VR. To conclude, let's take a peek at some upcoming titles coming in November. Goofy roguelite arena shooter Retail Therapy is rolling out on the 4th, where you wage war on endless hordes of angry customers. Second Son is coming on November 5th, an open-world action-intensive shooter with RPG elements. Online zombie shooter Ravenous Horde drops on the 6th, allowing up to 64 players to fight off the undead mobs. Also on the 6th, colorful hack-and-slash Rebel Engine is releasing on Steam, hoping to bring fast-paced 90s-style action, giving me a RoboQuest vibe. Counter-Strike Throwback, or is it, It Takes a War, is also releasing on the 6th. Old School Boom Shoot End Them Soldier is coming out on the 7th for some brutal guitar-shredding action. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is going live on the 13th to bring us more conspiracies, zombies, weapon skins, and 10-year-olds cussing us out. The game that popularized the extraction shooter Escape from Tarkov is finally releasing from early access into 1.0 on the 15th. Crunchy, grungy, immersive sim Brush Burial, Gutter World, sequel to 2023's Brush Burial, is drop-kicking onto Steam on the 19th. The classic LucasArts Western shooter Outlaws returns on the 20th, in the form of a remaster from Night Dive Studios. I'm very excited for this one. Over a decade after the original, Rack, one of the earliest boomer shooters to hit the market, returns in the form of a remake. A fairly straightforward old-school FPS, but a ton of fun and addicting. Captain Wayne Vacation Desperation drops on the 25th, a GZDoom powered shooter that feels like a pirate cartoon come to life. I had a lot of fun with the demo and I'm looking forward to diving into the full product. Afterblast releases the next day on the 26th, an FPS roguelite that can be played in solo or co-op, what's been described to me as a mixture of Doom Eternal and RoboQuest. The same day will also bring Tessaphon, an old-school shooter set in a vacation destination with retrowave and mecha sci-fi inspirations. And finally, Wolfenstein 3D-inspired Brotherhood is also blasting onto our hard drives on the 26th. And that's it for me. Once again, if there's any FPS releases, news stories, or upcoming titles not featured in this video that you care about, please be sure to share them down in the comments. And as far as my channel goes, be sure to check out my reviews for Hyperviolent and Forgive Me Father 2, as well as my Boomer Shooter demo roundup. I hope all of you are doing well, staying safe, and staying sane. See you next month for more State of the Boom. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. It's a huge help for the algorithm and getting my videos seen by more people. If you want to join my Discord, the link is down below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.